Unsure which forwards you should have on your Game Week 1 draft? Well, don't worry, I've got you covered with the ultimate breakdown in today's video. Now, before we take a look at any of the players included in today's video, I just want to say that if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as we are trying to hit 6,000 subscribers by the start of the new Premier League season. It'd be absolutely immense if we could do it. So like I said, if you enjoy it, hit that subscribe button. Right, let's start off, of course, with the big man, Erling Haaland. There's a lot of debate around whether or not he's actually going to be worth it coming in at that 15 million price tag. Obviously, a lot of people have different opinions. For me personally, I think you should have him on the match day 1 draft at the moment. That's my current thinking. And the reason for this is captaincy. That is the main reason we're going to own Erling Haaland. Without captaincy, he's not worth it. But because of captaincy, it makes him worth it, especially looking at match day 2 as well. I imagine he is going to be the most captain player that game week. Obviously, the fixtures for the opening 5, they were a little bit mid, I can't lie. Brentford have a pretty good record against Manchester City. Arsenal, obviously going to be a difficult test. And Chelsea as well. I think that could be a very difficult test on the opening day, depending how this new manager wants to start the season off. But for me, we are looking at captaincy. A lot of people will have Mohamed Salah or maybe some other players as well. And I think realistically, Haaland trumps a lot of them for captaincy over the opening couple game weeks, especially I'd argue as well after match day 7. Now, realistically, what you could do is start off with Erling Haaland. If it doesn't work out by the Arsenal game, then potentially shift him on with the 15 million budget. If he starts the season absolutely cooking, you are going to have to make some sacrifices to your team to get this man back in there. If he is cooking, if he's a valuable captaincy option as well. And for me, that game week 2-1 could be a killer. Going against him that early in the game could be detrimental to your rank this season. I think as well, if we look at the data that he still managed to put up 27 goals and 8 assists. Obviously, it's not the same as he did this previous season, but played less minutes, but he still underachieves on his XG. I just can't get it in my head going without this guy, especially at the start of the season for me. It just feels a little bit risky, and I'm not a big fan of that as towards the start of the season. I think stick with the pack as the season progresses and maybe we get some opportunities to go against Haaland. I definitely think that's the case. But for now, I'm going to recommend to you guys that you start the season with Erling Haaland. Moving on to my next 2 striker options. For me, these guys, they're in my team. They're in my first draft. I love them both. And I think they are both exceptional options, whether you've got Haaland or whether you've not got Haaland. Because as you can see last season, both of them had pretty good seasons, especially Ollie Watkins, 19 goals, 18 assists. Wow. That is pretty good. Isak as well with 21 goals and 4 assists. Isak's per 90 data as well was absolutely phenomenal, averaging 0.87 expected goals per 90. That is ridiculous stuff. That's like Erling Haaland level kind of numbers, that. So really, really good. Both of them have kind of, if you look over the opening 3 fixtures, pretty decent. They've both got one difficult test in there. I'd argue that Newcastle's are the better opening 3, to be honest. A newly promoted team at home. Bournemouth away, that should be fine. And then Tottenham at home. Interestingly, Newcastle have a very, very good record at St James's Park versus Tottenham, especially over the past 2 seasons as well. There's been some big scores if you can remember back that far as well. Like I said, Isak with the data that he put up towards the back end of the season and per 90 over the course of last season, he for me is an absolute must with the really, really good fixtures as well. I think as well he offers you a captaincy option if you're looking to go potentially against Erling Haaland in match day 1 as well. Arguably for match day 2, I know Haaland's got Ipswich, but Bournemouth away is still a pretty decent fixture for the big man as well. Moving over to Ollie Watkins, I think we might see potentially a little bit of downturn in terms of points from him. Managing to get 18 assists off 4.02 XA is pretty phenomenal from him. I would not be expecting the same number of assists or the same number of points, but I think one of the big things going for Ollie Watkins for me personally in my team is captaincy in match day 3. I'm sat with Haaland, I'm sat with Salah. They've both got a pretty mid fixture in match day 3, whereas Ollie Watkins has Leicester away, and that starts off an amazing run as well for Aston Villa. They play Leicester, Everton, Wolves, Ipswich, or within the next kind of run after that Arsenal game. So the post-Arsenal game is pretty good for Ollie Watkins. Maybe he's one of those players that you do bring in for match day 3 and onwards. But for me, I think he could be a great forward to start off with. I think one of the other appeals with him as well is with Douglas Luiz. He probably should be back on penalties as well, which obviously, as we know, if you played this game, penalties is just that little bit of a cheat code. And when a player like Ollie Watkins, who's already managing to get 19 goals without penalties, adds them to his tally as well, he could be a monster, potentially could hit that 25 or 20 plus goal mark as well for him. So I'm very, very impressed with both of these guys, and I would highly recommend having at least one of them in your match day 1 draft. Moving on to 2 Liverpool forwards. Now, the reason I've included both of these guys is because of those succulent fixtures for Liverpool at the start of the season. Ipswich in the opening day, Brentford match day 2, United match day 3, Forest, Bournemouth, Wolves, Palace after that. Some very, very, very tasty fixtures for Liverpool, using the Fantasy Football Hub fixture analyst as well. That has them down as picking up the most points over the course of that period as well. If you want to go and check out Fantasy Football Hub, they are offering a free 7-day trial. Link to that in the description. Plenty of other amazing tools to help you be the best FPL manager this season. So yeah, the fixtures, big tick. Liverpool as well, from an attacking standpoint, were top of expected goals created over the course of last season. Obviously, a lot of people are debating whether or not to go for Mohamed Salah, and if you're not, that means you've probably got, you know, a little bit more budget to potentially play with, and Darwin and Gakpo definitely should be on the radar. Now, I covered Jota in the midfield section, and again, the same rules apply to these two. Make sure we kind of know what that front three is going to look like, potentially for the opening 2 games, before obviously deciding for any of these two. But I think Darwin and Gakpo are probably leading the way over Jota and Diaz at the moment, but let's just wait and see on that one. Obviously, a lot of quality within that Liverpool squad, and potentially some rotation with the new manager, potentially finding that perfect front three for his start of the season. So let's talk through Darwin Núñez. As you can see, it's actually a pretty good season for him last year. I know he was down as a troll, but 11 goals, 11 assists, you know, 22 attacking returns from 36 games. It's pretty decent. You can't lie. That's pretty good numbers. We would not be sniffing at that, especially for that 7.5 million price tag. It's not bad. It isn't bad. And with some of the good fixtures coming up, who knows? The data-wise as well, underperformed on his expected goals. Who would have expected that from Darwin Núñez? Not me. As you can see, pretty good in terms of big chances created as well. So, you know, not just the goal threat, also pretty good at linking up with other Liverpool attackers. Obviously, though, Darwin does have quite a big reputation as one of the biggest trolls in the game. I do feel, though, if a manager can get the best out of him and kind of, you know, make him a more natural, clinical finisher, he could be one of the players that could cook at the start of the season. But again, it is always that Darwin Núñez curse. Moving on to Cody Gakpo, and the reason I feel he's kind of come more to the forefront is mainly down to his impressive performances at Euro 2024. Obviously, as you can see, the numbers weren't exceptional in his kind of second season, I believe, or his first full season for Liverpool. You know, not exceptional numbers, but again, limited minutes compared to the likes of Darwin and Diaz. Maybe this year, under the new manager, who is also Dutch, he could see a revival and potentially kickstart his Liverpool career. And I think he could be one of those players that could be quite highly owned. And if he can take his Euro 2024 form into the new season, I think he could be a fantastic asset to go with up front. And finishing up today's video, I thought we would take a look at the bargain bottom priced forwards. Obviously, a lot of the midfielders have come in quite expensive this year, so people will be looking for some discount options. And for me, these 3 are probably the best. We've got Chris Wood, we've got João Pedro, and we have Muniz. From fixture-wise, I'd have to argue that Muniz and Wood definitely outweigh João Pedro as well. Brighton's opening 3 fixtures are pretty difficult. After that, Ipswich, Nottingham Forest. But then again, it goes back to Chelsea and Tottenham. So if you're looking for a player that's going to realistically start, I'd say over the opening 7 game weeks, you may be getting 3 fixtures out of him. That, for me, probably not good enough and probably going to rule him out. I definitely feel at some point he will be a very, very decent option, to be honest. But right now, right at this moment, I do not think he is going to be a solid pick for me. I prefer going for Wood or Muniz in my personal opinion. But let's see how he gets on with the new manager. Let's see how Brighton start. And I definitely feel further down the line, he could be a decent option if he remains at that 5.5 million price tag. Moving on to Chris Wood. Nottingham Forest have some really exciting fixtures over the opening 6. I would say Liverpool's probably the big one that's going to be the difficult test in match day 4. But other than that, Bournemouth, Southampton, Wolves, Brighton and Fulham all within that run. And Chris Wood, second half of the season, was phenomenal. His expected goals per 90, very good. Better than Ollie Watkins over the course of the season. So massive improvement from him as well. Great opening free, and coming in at that 6 million price range, I think could be going under the radar. I think he could be a fantastic little pickup. 14 goals for him, 1 assist last season. If he can kick on with the strong start that Forest have on paper with the fixtures, I think he could be a great differential, especially if it enables you to go and bring in some of those more pricey midfielders, in my personal opinion. Moving on to the final option and the final player of today's video, it is going to be Muniz. Obviously a difficult fixture in the opening game against Manchester United, but then it's Leicester, Ipswich, West Ham, Newcastle and Nottingham Forest. A pretty decent run. Obviously was his breakout season last year in the Premier League. Again, expected goals nearly averaging an expected goal per 2 games, which is pretty decent for a team like Fulham. Obviously, I feel if they get Emile Smith-Rowe, he was a player I featured in the midfielders video as well. If they can get Emile Smith-Rowe, he could be a right talent up. That front three could be cooking, to be honest. Muniz down the middle, obviously Emile Smith-Rowe, probably Harry Wilson and Willian kind of switching around as well. That could be a dangerous front three, and with some very appetising fixtures, obviously 2 newly promoted sides within the first 3 fixtures, he and Emile Smith-Rowe could be a great little double up, and maybe differential double up as well. I think obviously towards the back end of the season he did see some early substitutions with Raul Jimenez and Armando Broja, but Broja has now left, so it is just Jimenez who will be his main competitor. I do feel like Muniz does start more of the games, but there is that probably risk that he'll only play around 60 to 65. Awoniyi is also back for Nottingham Forest, but I still feel Chris Wood probably starts, especially how he finished the season. So for me, I think Chris Wood's the number 1 option, Muniz second, and João Pedro third. Let me know what you think of that down in the comment section below. If you've got any questions about which forwards you should be going for as well, get it in the comments. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck in match day 1.